Hello and welcome. This is Karen Bull, and I hope you're having a great week. Today I am playing along with a Blog Name Hero Challenge, Put a Flower on It, and I made this really cute, beautiful tri-fold card with a vellum element. Today I'm going to start with the color layering Swallowtail from Hero Arts. It has complementary dies and this beautiful butterfly layering stamp set.
Starting with the most solid image of the butterfly stamp set, I will use my stamp positioner tool and place my solid image on a piece of vellum. I'll ink it up using Dandelion Hero Arts ink and stamp onto my piece of vellum. In this particular case, I need to remember that because I am working with vellum, that the ink will stay on the top of the paper and it will not absorb into the paper. Vellum will keep this ink wet and slick. So in order to ensure that I do not smear my project, which I have a tendency to do quite often, I will use a heat gun in between each of the layers to ensure that the ink is heat set and solid before I move on to my next layered image. For the second layer of my butterfly, I use orange soda ink to offer a little bit of detail and variation in this butterfly. You will see me line up the stamp right over the first image and use my stamp positioner tool to ink that image up. You do not need to use a stamp positioner tool for this technique. I personally find I am just more successful when I do use my stamp positioner tool because I cannot line up the stamps on a whim using acrylic blocks. I am jealous of all of you out there who can do this and get perfect layers each time. Even when I employ my stamp positioner tool, I do not get the layers lined up all the time in a perfect way. So here you'll see I use that orange soda and the ink is wet, so I'm using my heat tool to heat set the ink so that it will not smear when I move on to my third and final layer. For the third layer, I use Hero Arts black ink to do the final layer, which is the outline of the butterfly, as well as a little bit more detail on the butterfly. If you take a quick close look at the vellum, you'll see that one side looks like there's a darker line there on the left side. You'll see it when I open the MISTI. I have already pre-scored my piece of vellum, knowing that I'll be wrapping that vellum around the back of a side folding note card. So I just did that in advance, so it was one less step that I had to do later. Plus it was helping me position where I wanted that butterfly. Next, I need to complete the partial die cutting on this butterfly using the complementary dies. I have lined that die up over my stamped image, and I will be setting my cutting plates so that I am only cutting a portion of this butterfly out. There you can see me lining it up to the middle of the die, and I'll run that through my die cut machine and partially cut the butterfly. Because the die is set to cut around the image, I need to finish making the final cuts to the butterfly so that the portion that I've cut with the die cut will separate from the image. And I know that is very convoluted and very complicated and not well said. However, you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute once I get my head out of the way and I'm done cutting the rest of the vellum. So here we go. I've just lined that up, made a couple cuts, and there you go. You can see that the rest of the vellum has separated from the stamped image. And here I'm just removing a piece of tape that I use to hold the die in place. Moving on, we need to now build the base of the card, which is the put a flower on it portion of the challenge. I'm using two flowers from two stamp sets here. First is the pineapple stamp set, and the second is the cardinal stamp set. The flowers I selected for this card base are layering flowers. So I have a couple of inks that I used here. If you have any questions about the supplies I use, they will be listed below, but I used orange soda, tangerine, pale tomato, and strawberry for my flowers. On a side folding note card, I used Neenah Solar White 110-pound weight cardstock for the base of my card. And here I'm just going to randomly scatter flowers across the entire panel of my cardstock to fill it in and create a patterned background. I really love the design of these flowers. They're very forgiving. They are very playful and whimsical. So for me, it's okay if when I stamp, it's not perfect because the design of the flower is very forgiving. Additionally, with Hero Arts inks, what happens when you stamp them is that they stamp a little blotchy, but that's not even a good word. But it doesn't stamp completely solid and evenly. And what happens is as the ink dries, it smooths out over time and you get a beautiful image as your end result. So here you'll see I'm just continuing to fill up my panel with the solid most image of the flowers. And once I'm done, I'll move on to the detailed image and my second color. I don't know about where all of you are sitting right now at this point in time watching this video. However, I am in the middle of April 2018 and there is snow flying out my window. So I am very excited about this card and the spring-like colors and its inspiration to my own personal garden. I have to say I can't wait to get outside and in those gardens and start digging around. So here I've moved on to the second flower in my stamp design, and I am just going to scatter these tiny little flowers throughout this base of my card to fill in any gaps with the flowers. You will see as I continue on that the entire card is not filled with all of these flowers, and that's okay because I will come back in later with an Altenew alcohol ink marker in a complementing color and create a bunch of dots along the background of the paper to fill in those gaps. This yellow color is a great color because it matches the base of my butterfly that we stamped earlier. But here you'll see I just make a bunch of varying size dots, big ones, little ones, and I do them in groups of 3 and I scatter them throughout the background. I cannot take credit for this brilliant idea. I learned this from both Jennifer McGuire and Christina Warner, who are just my crafting superheroes. So as I finish up, you can see all the detailing in the card. It really helps to fill in that background and offer some interest. Another technique that I picked up from both Christina Warner and Jennifer McGuire is to offer a little bit of a white center in the middle of your flowers. It offers some interest and dimension. Additionally, I wanted a little bit of shimmer, so I use a Spectrum Noir shimmer pen to fill in each of the flowers individually. Here you can see I'm coming in and just scribbling over the top of each of the flowers. I don't have much concern for staying in the lines. This extra step of providing the detail of the shimmer and the white gel pen offers some interest and dimension and variation to the background of the card. It only takes a few minutes, but it really has a powerful impact on the finished card. So here I'm using my white gel pen, and on the larger flowers offering 3 little white dots in the center, and on the little flowers just a single dot to offer some interest. Okay, moving on to the sentiment. Taking that butterfly piece of vellum, I went back to my color layering stamp set and found a fantastic sentiment about fluttering by to say hi. I just fell in love with that sentiment. So I put it in my MISTI. You do not need to use a stamp positioner tool for this. However, I find I make mistakes super uber duper easily. So I have placed this in my MISTI. See? Mistake. So I have put this in my MISTI and I'm using black VersaFine ink. First, I prep the surface with my anti-static tool, which you should use each and every time to ensure you do not get embossing powder in places you do not want. I will cover this sentiment and the sticky ink in clear embossing powder, and then I will heat set that sentiment so that it is smooth and melted and has a great glossy shine for a final finish. You most certainly could have stamped this sentiment in clear VersaFine ink and covered it with black embossing powder and then heat set it, but black embossing powder makes me nervous. I get clear embossing powder all over the place as it is, so to have black embossing powder everywhere and getting into all the nooks and crannies of my life, I just find it's easier to stamp with black VersaFine ink and cover it with clear embossing powder. So now we are ready to assemble our card. So using some some strong adhesive on the back of the vellum flap. This is Be Creative tape. I will remove the adhesive covering on the tape and stick it onto the back of my card so that we have a completed tri-folding card. You can see here I'm just lining up the score line with the edge of my card to ensure that I can open and close these flaps smoothly. I personally love all things glitter, shine, shimmer, and so on. So here you'll see that I will add a few pieces of confetti sequins to this final card. Now these sequins are great. They look like little mirrors. They are flat confetti sequins. They do not have a hole in the center of them. They're just a flat sequins or confetti. I really don't know how to describe them to you, so I hope that you can see the detailing either in the photos on my blog or here in this video. But here you'll see I just scatter them all over my card. I adhere them with Ranger Multi-Matte Medium glue so that they stay in place and hold up through the delivery process in the mail. I really love my jewel picker. It helps me pick up these tiny little details to put on my cards. If you haven't invested in one, it is an inexpensive tool that really has a huge impact on how quickly I can put together cards and my frustration level, let's be honest, because it makes it easy to move around these tiny little, sometimes sticky and staticky sequins and confetti pieces. Additionally, I love my little bead tray. It helps me sort through the beads, but keep them, or sort through the sequins, I should say, but keep them contained. Again, another inexpensive tool to have in your craft room that makes crafting a little easier and a little more enjoyable. So you can see me sorting through those confetti sequins, but they are all staying in one place. Additionally, I love the storage system I have for my sequins and confetti. So there you have it, folks. Here is the final look at the card. You can see that gorgeous shimmering detail and on the flowers on the left hand side of the card, and this tri-fold layout is really unique and spectacular, and I think the recipient of this card is really going to like that unexpected gesture. And I really just love the detailing from Hero Arts for this beautiful butterfly. So I hope you enjoyed making this card with me today. I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of your week.